This morning we talked about going to war. Be willing to die on the court. All right, I was so amped today. I should have been able to take a nap. I couldn't sleep last night. I was up till 5 a.m. I couldn't even nap today. Pre-game, I'm laying on the floor doing my breathing exercise. I'm envisioning what our team is going to play like. And you guys went even higher. You went even higher. And frankly, our conviction and our belief in the game plan, the bench was great. Everybody contributed. Luka, it's good to have you back. Yes, sir. It's good to have you back.
Welcome, everybody, here to the Basketball Passport Podcast. I'm Anthony Irwin, joined on this fine Sunday evening by Lee Ellis. That was J.J. Redick speaking to the Los Angeles Lakers after they beat the crap out of the Denver Nuggets Saturday night. He would go on in literally the next second to tell Luka that he's a first-team All-NBA defensive player, which would be quite the development. Lee, how you holding up, man? I haven't touched the ground since that game. How are you holding up?
Yeah, what a moment that was, because Luka's first couple of games, weren't all that impressive, but coming back from injury and not looking super great. I know what they went 1-1 against the Jazz early on, so people were like, maybe the Mavs are onto something here, getting rid of Luka. But a performance like that there last night, had that huge block early on, and held up his own. But to do it, I think in Denver, I think that's the real standout here. That it was a blowout against the team that's really caused the Lakers some problems over these last couple of seasons, and seeing what now, that real potential for what it could be with the Luka and LeBron team. I'm still not convinced. I think the Lakers still need something else, another big. I know obviously the deal there fell through with Williams and Connect, so I think they're going to need someone else in the playoffs, because Jokic is going to be a handful. But a game like that is one of the ones where you just look at Nico Harrison and you're just thinking, like, what the hell was that all about? Because ultimately, even if the Mavs say, it was bad, we fire him, well, then he doesn't pay the price, really, because you want to see him for the next 10 years just with this team, just continually paying for giving up Luka Doncic. And so if he gets fired, then he gets let off the hook. But Luka, man, he's never going to be ripped. He's never going to be the guy who's coming out as if he spent all summer in the gym just working on his body. But it doesn't matter, because what you saw last night is the best version of Luka, when he's just in cruise control and absolutely dismantling a team that, as I say, given the Lakers real problems over the last couple of years.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that game a little bit more. We're going to talk about the Knicks kind of slowing down a little bit, potentially, as usually happens with Tom Thibodeau teams over the course of a season. We're going to be talking about Jimmy Butler and the Golden State Warriors, and the belief that was kind of re-injected into that situation there by way of trading for a third star. Right before we went live, we got a report from Shams Karani of ESPN saying that apparently Joel Embiid and the Philadelphia 76ers are going to be looking for other avenues and other procedures to try to fix whatever's going on with his knee. That brings Joel Embiid's season into question, and then obviously moving forward. So we'll talk about all that stuff. And then this week's destination, which you're going to preview, Lee, looks a little familiar. I think I know a thing or two about where you were, where you just were.
Yeah, I was only there for one day on the way back from the All-Star weekend in San Francisco last weekend. And, man, LA lives up to the hype for just the weather, the basketball, the hoops, the weed offerings that I was made while I was there. I was like, no, I'm just here to play ball, man. I don't want any weed. Are you sure? Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, I appreciate it. I truly appreciate it. It's a thriving economy out there, but I was just like, nah, man, those days are a bit past me now. I'm just here to hoop, just here to have some fun and some hoop. There was a few hustlers out playing craps. They were actually, the fellas. They said, you want to play? And I said, no, I may as well just give you $1,000 and I'll walk away. Right? Maybe that's.
Yeah, I remember one time I was playing at a park. I think this was a little more coastal. I think this was in Huntington area, and playing pickup, and this guy walks onto the court. We had 9. And this guy like walks onto the court. We're like, hey man, do you want to be our 10th? Do you want to come out and play? He's like, what?
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, can you just like be a 10th body on the court? Can you just like run up and down? He's like, yeah, man, totally. First play, ball always finds this player. First play of the game, ball finds this guy, and he shoots it, and it is like 3 feet to the right.
Yeah.
And he misses it. He goes, oh man, my bad. And I go like, what the hell happened? Because the ball is obviously out of bounds.
Yeah.
He goes, so if you see 3 baskets, which one do you shoot at? And I'm like, you just set screens, okay, man? You just
yeah.
So it's it's been around a little while.
No, it's a great basketball scene though out there, man. I love it, and again, the weather really does allow for me to do what I like to do, which is play outside because it's bright sun, beautiful blue skies. That's perfect. So I got some good content from out there, had some fun times. I was only there for about 10 hours during the day, but got some good stuff. So it was always fun to be there, and hopefully I'll be going back soon.
All right, so that'll be there at the end of the show. Let's dive on in, though, as we kind of started talking a little bit about the Lakers beat the Denver Nuggets in Denver 123-100. And I know body language is this very, taboo subject. It's not something that you kind of bring up all that often unless you have one of the biggest podcasts in sports history, in Simmons' case. But, I really was blown away by the Denver Nuggets reaction to that game last night, where they walk into it and their official account is sending tweets saying doesn't matter who's on the Lakers, we own them, essentially. The players themselves, walk into that game with all the confidence in the world. And I think they were really kind of blown away. And I think really specifically Nikola Jokic was kind of blown away by the game plan that the Lakers had, where it was it doesn't matter where Jokic is trying to get. We are not he is not to get to his spots easily. If he wants to catch it in one place, we're going to make him catch it 3-4 feet beyond that place and make him work that way. Anytime he takes a dribble towards the paint, we're going to completely build a wall around the paint and have as much wingspan and active hands that he has to try to complete those passes through. They were basically just begging and daring Aaron Gordon and Russell Westbrook and Julian Strawther and Christian Brown to beat them from the outside. Jamal actually did play well. I thought he hit 6 threes and really kind of kept them. Jamal Murray, I blanked on his name. Kept them in the game, really. But eventually the Lakers played enough defense to hold the Denver Nuggets to 100 points. They had been averaging over that 9-game winning streak about 117 a game. And then I thought the biggest story of that game, Lee, was how easily the Lakers were able to generate basically anything that they wanted offensively. It was basically, and I'm biased and all this stuff too. And look at me, I'm floating as I start talking about this game. But I really thought that, essentially if the Lakers had one of Luka, LeBron, or Austin, the offense looked, they were kind of treading water. If they have 2 of those guys at any given time, they have pretty good offensive ability. But when those 3 guys were on the court at the same time, there wasn't anything that Denver was able to do with them, with the variety of offensive sets and pick and rolls and dribble handoffs that they were doing that involved 2 or 3 of those guys at any given play. I have my questions too about this team. Jackson Hayes would be the worst starting center in the history of champions if the Lakers somehow win a championship this season. But I also don't know what most teams are going to do against that offense.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, like I say before, it was going to take Luka a little bit of time here just to sort of, get himself into the team, get over the shock of the trade, coming back from injury as well, and then they had the All-Star break. So he had even a little bit more time there just to sort of, ruminate and think about things. But I think that was the best sort of game that they wanted to play against a team like the Nuggets, just to see how they match up. Now, Nikola Jokic is an incredibly smart player. I think Mike Malone deserves a lot of credit for, they'll respond next time these two teams face. I mean, they'll definitely say, if you guys are going to challenge us to shoot, then we have to be ready for that and we have to come out there and shoot. And also Jokic, just again, I expect him to go, okay, because ironically, I think, the theory is Anthony Davis was a great matchup defensively for Jokic. He was long and athletic, but Jokic always won that battle. So now he's like, it's funny that he's not there. Jokic should be able to feast on the Lakers, but he wasn't able to do that last night. So it's great for, being a non-Lakers, non-Nuggets fan, because I'm like, I can't wait to see the response here, and hopefully we see these teams in the playoffs, because the Lakers, and one thing that has been abundantly clear to me is LeBron has been rejuvenated by having Luka out there, where he feels like, I can, I think it was the second play of the game, that incredible outlet pass where LeBron was running as if he was 20 years old again. It's as if Luka's the old man and LeBron's the young guy in that situation, like he just flicked the pass out.
If you watch the two guys move, Luka looks like the 40-year-old, and LeBron looks like the 25-year-old.
Exactly, he's very spry. So that's what's really exciting for me. And then Reeves is kind of like Derek Fisher was on those Shaq and Kobe Lakers teams, where it's like, just because of the amount of attention the other guys are going to get, if he can just get those threes and knock them in, he's going to be very, very valuable on that team. So this is what we needed, we want to sort of see, I don't think, and you would, of course, I'll assume you'll agree with this, prior to the trade, you were thinking I don't know how we're going to beat the Nuggets. You haven't been able to do it. Now it's like, okay, how are they going to defend the Lakers? Because as we've seen with Luka, it's not like a physical body can really slow him down. It's not like a super athlete. It's not like a big, long guy can slow him down. He gets what he wants, and he does those threes where you see him walk into them when he steps over half court. It's coming. It's that giant step back in the corner. He sort of does a little celebration hop afterwards, and that's when he's just in his bag. That reminds me of that game 7 against the Suns, where he was just like, I'm just firing away, and these shots are as clean as anything. Same against the Timberwolves last year. So I think right now it's like, you don't want to get sort of too excited about the Lakers. You want to you got to balance it out again, like you did at the start, where it's like, okay, give them a couple of games here. That is only one game. Let's see what happens now, and if Luka is fully over that injury. But on paper right now, I mean, the Thunder, the Rockets, the Grizzlies, the Nuggets have all been better than the Lakers this season. But as it stands right now, the Lakers aren't looking at any of those teams and being particularly afraid of them.
Yeah, the thing with the Anthony Davis, Nikola Jokic matchup in that, and I think probably the biggest reason why the Nuggets really kind of own the Lakers is that, not only is it's one thing for Jokic to be the best player on a basketball court, in any given matchup, but when he's the best player on the basketball court and he specifically mitigates your best player or most talented player, as he did with Anthony Davis, when he takes AD basically out of the game in the ways that he was able to take him out of the game, and he also didn't allow Anthony Davis to be the help side defender that he could have been, or that, and all of those things. It also didn't help that, over the last few years, the wings in those matchups were not at the level of Dorian Finney-Smith or Jared Vanderbilt or Rui. At this stage of his career, I think Rui especially has really improved over the last season or so. And for Anthony Davis, he's I really kind of feel for the guy, because the obvious change here is going to be swapping him out for Luka. For one thing, Luka's just a better basketball player than he is. But secondly, it's such a nightmare matchup for the Lakers when AD was such a big part of their identity. There was just nothing that the Lakers could do when Jokic started taking it to Anthony Davis. And this time though, the Lakers basically prepared for the fact that Jokic was going to take it to Jackson Hayes, or if Alex Len ever got onto the court or whatever. Like they just said, we know what that's going to look like. Let's just not let him get to any spots comfortably here, and basically swarm him all game with all of these really long, athletic, physical wings. And that really gave him problems. Like Jokic didn't take a shot until the second quarter.
Yeah.
He had a triple double, but some of my friends over there at DNVR, I listened to their show after the game, and they were saying how that was probably the emptiest triple double that Jokic has ever had. Like it was really interesting to watch Jokic not figure that out. And like to the point you made a second ago, this is all that I've been thinking about, Leigh, for the last like 24 hours is I can't wait for look, there's a really good chance that Denver just beats the Lakers in a 7-game series. Altogether possible, if not probable. They are the better team. They won a championship more recently. Jokic is still better than any other player that is on the basketball court there. That said, a chess match between Jokic and Luka and LeBron and Mike Malone and JJ Redick and like all and given all of the chess pieces that can be moved all around the board in that series would be absolutely spectacular. It would be so fascinating. And I was watching that game last night, and I even tweeted it out. I was like, yeah, I know how this might go or whatever, but give me 7 more of these in a couple of months. Give me 7 more of these matchups as quickly as you possibly can.
Well, that's the thing. The triple-double means nothing to Jokic. He doesn't care at all about that. You know, like when his team gets smoked like that, that's the only thing that matters to him. But you know, and again, when you're defending him, he doesn't want to have to score 35 or 40 points. That's not what he wants to do to win a game. He wants to be able to go there, post up, fire that ball out, and have Murray go for 30, have Michael Porter Jr. go for 25, you know, have Aaron Gordon hit his little dunks by slashing into the lane and things like that. That's Jokic when he's at his best. So if he has to go out there and be like, man, I've got to get 38 for us to be competitive tonight, that's an effective strategy for the Lakers because that's just not Jokic playing the way he wants to play. But again, he's a very smart guy. And so that's why I think he'll come away from last night's game, you know, thinking like, okay, I know what to expect now. Now, if it is Jackson Hayes and Alex Len who are on him, then maybe he'll say, okay, well, I'll just eat 45 off these two guys if I have to because it's easy money. But again, I think the Nuggets are at their best when you know they're going downhill and the ball is moving around, and you know that's what you hope to see from a response to a regular season game like this. Because again, just one game, but it was in Denver, and it was a thoroughly convincing performance by the Lakers and a real eye
opener.
Preview to what you know they've got about 20 odd games here to get things together. Mm-hmm. And it'll be a real situation for me where they're not going to make the play and they're going to be in the playoffs, but that, you know, let's say they finish 5th, whatever, it doesn't matter to them. Like LeBron does not care about playoff seeding or anything like that. He's like, as long as we can sort of really figure out our system and our way, then we'll take it on anyone in any location and sort of believe we can beat them. And that's what I think, you know, that's now what's going to be a fascinating watch here down the stretch, to see just how rejuvenated LeBron is, how healthy Luka is, and if they have got enough time here to really figure it out, because I think they do. You know, I think we've seen that with Luka, that it's like, you know, a mid-season trade can sometimes be tough for guys to sort of figure out, you know, in that short time without having to having a summer together and without having a preseason. But the way that both of these guys play, where it's like we're going to both thrive here by just playing our natural games. That's the thing. Like Luka needs a ball in his hands. LeBron's better when he has it in his hands. But they're also like, this is going to work fine for us. This is not like a Russell Westbrook situation where it's like, it feels like he's just going to go out and get his. Luka and LeBron are the same. They won't really be out there looking to get 30 points each. They just want to sort of highlight each other's strengths and you know, be as dominant as they can in a team. And already we've seen some of that.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, the Lakers' box score last night was incredibly even, right? You had Luka go for 32, but you also had Rui score 21. You had LeBron score 25. Austin had 23.
Yeah.
It was just that starting five and those and really the epic four, really, because Rui is going to be spoon fed wide open 3-pointers and wide open dunks and Jackson Hayes. Like, it's so funny to watch him play out there because he's just like, I just get to run and dunk now. Like
Yeah.
this is all I was put on earth to do.
Ah, yeah.
Perfect. You
Yeah.
know, and I think it's really fascinating. And look, OKC is still incredibly tough. Houston looks really good this year. Memphis looks really good. And this Western Conference, like the Dallas Mavericks are winning despite having basically none of their front court right now.
Yeah.
Kyrie Irving is playing spectacular basketball. The Western Conference is still going to be an absolute murderer's row of these series and matchups and all of that. But like if I were a team in that West and going into the series, I'm looking across there and it's Luka Doncic and it's LeBron James. And over the course of 7 games, they get that repetition to be able to figure out what we're doing here. That would terrify me.
Yeah.
That would really, really scare me.
God, we could, it's not beyond the realm of possibility to have a Lakers Mavericks first round too.
Oh yeah. That's right there.
Yeah, that would be great. And actually, just looking at it, I didn't realize they have actually overtaken the Rockets there as it stands right now. They have one fewer loss. The Rockets do have the extra win. I thought that when I was thinking about it before, I thought the Rockets I saw earlier had an extra win, but they have one less loss, the Lakers. That's why their percentage has them above the Rockets right now. But yeah, that's the thing. The Thunder, they've just been cruising along. They've got that incredible defense. The Grizzlies at full strength with Jar out there. They look great. The Nuggets there, obviously having that incredible win streak, have them, oddly only 2 games up on the Lakers. It feels like they should be further up, So a fascinating here battle in the West as to how things are going to play out for the rest of the season. And this is good. I mean, this is what, honestly, the NBA needs, because one of the things that I've been critical of in the past is that sort of stretch run from post-All-Star to playoffs can be kind of dull, but I don't feel that right now. I think there's going to be a lot of jockeying for position here, and, people, honestly, be trying to avoid the Lakers, I think, as it stands right now. One of those sort of teams where you're like, oh man, only if we get to the conference finals we would want to face them.
Yeah. All right, we'll move from that gauntlet that is the Western Conference, and we'll go to the opposite of whatever that would be in the Eastern Conference, where, like you mentioned, how the Denver Nuggets went on that 9-game win streak. And they did jump up a little bit in the seedings or whatever, but they didn't really gain any ground on Oklahoma City, and they didn't exactly separate themselves from the 3 and the 4 seed. Whereas, like, if you go on a 9-game winning streak in the East, you get that I think gets you home court in the playoffs. But the New York Knicks in that Eastern Conference, starting to the injuries are starting to pile up a little bit. Some of the frustrations are starting to come back. I'm looking here on ESPN's homepage, and it's Stephen A. Smith screaming into the TV, and he's asking why the Knicks are so bad defensively. Now, they did just get back Josh Hart, and as you would expect, Tom Thibodeau eased him into the rotation. Just played a nice, easy 40 minutes in his first game after a longer absence. But the Knicks, that is, have lost a couple straight. They lost to Cleveland and they lost to Boston. And they've lost to Boston the 2 last times that they have played them. The Knicks beat the Lakers beat the Knicks a couple weeks back as well. And yeah, I'm curiously, is this just kind of the same cycle that we see here every year with the Tom Thibodeau teams, that, like, as you go later into the season, the more and more and more you see these guys wear down because he has no impulse control when it comes to minute allocation.
Well, and that's what happened today against the Celtics. They were getting killed early on, and then it was Karl Anthony Towns was injured and limped to the bench, and then he came back into the game. This is from Tommy Beard. I just wanted to confirm that sort of timeline here. Less than 4 minutes ago, Knicks down 20, and Cat was brought back into the game.
Down 20.
Yeah, that is, honestly, this is sort of Thibs' problem that has been, a consistent theme throughout his career. Like, you can't, you look at those Chicago Bulls teams that he coached, with Rose and Noah and Deng and those guys, And the sort of constant that happened with those guys is they played heavy minutes, but then the latter stages of their career, their bodies just gave up on them. And that's what's
Walding
happening.
almost died.
Yeah. Yeah.
He had that staph infection in Chicago, and I'm not saying that was like a Thibs directly related thing or whatever, but none of those guys only because Jimmy Butler is the only one there who has had a longish career after he got away from Thibs, but Derrick Rose broke down really quickly. Joakim Noah broke down really quickly. Luol Deng is a kind of running joke in LA because of how quickly he broke down out of Chicago. I'm concerned for Josh Hart. This poor dude is now, this is his second straight season, I think, leading the league in minutes or close to it. And it's just, he got OG Anunoby and he got Mikal Bridges and obviously Jalen Brunson. And, they're a very good team, obviously, when they're all together. The concern with Thibs teams is that, like, you get to the playoffs and normally all these teams get better because their main guys play so much more in the playoffs. But how much more can these guys actually play? And there's no extra gear that these teams can hit.
Well, and especially when you look at the two teams that have just played and got beaten easily by the Cavs by 37. The Celtics game there was, I think it was only 9 or 10 points in the end, but that was a very flattering scoreline. This one, the Knicks did fight back in the third quarter there, but the Celtics were in total control of this. So that's the thing. If I'm Thibs right now, if you look at the Eastern Conference where they are, I mean, the Pacers are making some ground, but they've still got a fair way back. The Knicks are almost locked in, you would say, to that third spot right now. Like, they don't have to do much from here to sort of stay where they are. Thibs has someone's got to say to him, man, you've got to make sure that your guys can get through the playoffs. Look what happened just last season, against those Indiana Pacers, in Game 7 in Madison Square Garden. Brunson was down, guys were injured, and just not only injured, but just out of gas as well. So that's Thibs has got to, this could derail a really promising season. Because I threaded earlier today, I thought, it was actually before the Cavs game as well. I thought, you know what? I'm almost ready to say the Knicks are as good as either of those two teams. Now they've played them both. And I'm I think they probably talent-wise are as good as them, but I think they're now playing against that other obstacle, which is like you're just not even going to make it to to the playoffs with a healthy roster because these guys are down now. Obviously, we don't know about Karl Anthony Towns, if he's going to miss any time, if there's anything significant there. But when a guy's hobbling to the bench, it's like, okay, chuck it in for today, man. Get him healthy because him and Brunson have been great this season. But without either one of those guys, the Knicks, I think, could almost be first-round fodder, because I think they're just not deep enough in that sense to be able to withstand losing one of those two guys. Yeah. And the last thing you want is for it to be a sort of self-inflicted wound.
Now, there is the possibility that they might get Mitchell Robinson back. That would certainly help. But, for how long he'll be back and all that stuff. And here's my thing. It's been the story for so long with Thibs. How is it that like nobody stands up and is like, hey, man, might not be the best idea to like, because I think of all of the players who were leading the NBA in minutes, I think like out of the top 5, the Knicks have like 3 of those players. And it's just, I don't think that's very healthy for you here moving forward. And it's always the case with Thibs. Always. Yeah. It's just, it's a fatal flaw, like it's something that has followed him every year, everywhere that he's been. Yeah. And it's always the same thing. And it always has the same outcome. And for some reason, like we're just gonna, it's kind of like the narrative that surrounded Mike D'Antoni teams for his entire career, where it was like, the offense is always going to be overwhelming. It's always going to be an exciting brand of basketball, but he's never going to win anything in the postseason because his teams never play enough defense. Yeah. And like there's nuance and there's context to it as to like the amount of defense that they're playing in at the pace that they were playing. And that was always different or whatever. But like, this Thibs thing is like that narrative is actually true.
Yeah.
Like, it's actually true that he is actually playing all of these guys the
Yeah.
way that he is and always running through these players the way that he does. And I just
Well,
say it's crazy that no organization has stepped up and was like, hey, Tom, chill.
Yeah.
Like, we're up by 25. Just get your guys out of there.
Yeah. Two things. I mean, Derrick Rose, when he first blew his knee out, he shouldn't have been in the game. Remember that was against Philadelphia. And then I do know someone who used to cover the Bulls, and he said that, Thibs was a control freak, where he was like, no one could really convince him otherwise. Now, that was his first head coaching job in Chicago. So you can understand maybe, okay, first time that, he would be a little bit like that, but you would think he would have learned that lesson. But right now, it doesn't feel like that. It feels the opposite, where he's just walking his guys sort of, on the plank here again. And it's going to have the same result. And again, you only have to look at last season, because the guys, they just ran out of gas when they should have, at worst, made the Eastern Conference Finals. You have a Game 7 at home.
Yeah,
You've got to beat a team like Indiana, who ended up getting swept by the Celtics. And again, I like the Pacers; they were good, but the Knicks should have beaten them, but they beat themselves in the end.
Yep. Speaking of that, the only player who has been able to extend his career after playing for Tom Thibodeau is really Jimmy Butler. He goes to the Golden State Warriors at the deadline, and immediately, a Warriors organization that was headed by Steve Kerr and headed by Steph Curry and headed by Draymond Green, who are all saying, "No, we don't need to wager the future to try to compete now." They're singing a very different tune now that they have Jimmy Butler there, and they did do all of those things to go out and get him. They have been a significantly more fun team to watch. Steph looks like a just completely different player. You mentioned the pep and LeBron step after they got Luka, but Steph is showing a lot of the same stuff there. You have Brandon Pajemski, and you have they haven't gotten back the wing whose name I'm blanking on, but like more of their guys are just kind of slotted where they should be now that you have a legitimate second best player in Jimmy Butler that pushes Draymond to the third best player realm, and then that Pods gets slotted where he should be. There, Moses Moody and the rest of their wings there get slotted in the right places. Like, just it looks like a very different team there, and everybody who'd been begging the Warriors to bring in a second star for Steph, we're all sitting here like, see,
Yeah.
this is all we've been waiting for this whole time.
Yeah. Can you say honeymoon period? I mean, that's what it feels like, because Jimmy's, Jimmy's wearing the number 10 to Tim Hardaway because Tim Hardaway was talking trash about him. He's got Jimmy Butler the third there. 5-1. Ironically, this was his first game at Chase Center. Since the trade, he's played 5 games on the road, and the only one they lost was in Dallas there just before the All-Star break. Really good game, that one. But Jimmy's playing well. He's putting up decent numbers. I mean, he's not a great three-point shooter. He never really has been, but he does get to the line. And I think that's probably not a bad compensation there for the Warriors, where Jimmy's going to work hard and get inside and do what he can. But it's just funny because things seem to be going so well and so smooth. And, talking about with Thibs, we've seen this play out before. Well, yeah. We've seen this play out before too with Jimmy. I remember when he first went to Philadelphia, I think he hit 2 game winners in like his first 3 or 4 games, and I was like, oh wow, they've picked up Jimmy Butler.
There will never be problems ever
again.
again.
Yeah, exactly. And and he's then he didn't end up even signing with them that summer. So, but look, this is what the Warriors wanted. They wanted that difference maker, and I think 100% agree with what you said there. Steph is like, oh yeah, okay. I've got someone who I know can absolutely go out there and get a bucket and is motivated, and he's got the big contract extension too there from the Warriors. So, so far so good for Golden State. They've played Dallas twice already. It feels like the Warriors and the Mavs have played like 10 times this season. Like they just we had the early return Clay to the Bay Area. And it's like, man, they're playing again. They've played twice already. So, but there's still a fair bit of work there to do for the Warriors. They're in the play-in, comfortably right now. The Suns, oddly, are the team that's, still on the outside looking in there. But the Warriors, with the 5 of their last 6 wins, have got them in there. And it'll be interesting to see now how high up they can go, if they can get in to the playoffs for real and not have to go through the play-in tournament, because I think, of course, for Steph and Jimmy, they don't want to have to beat 1 or potentially 2 teams just to make the playoffs. I think they want to get in there. So really interested to see if they can maintain this, and if they go on a little bit of a losing streak, how then the situation changes, because as we know with Jimmy, he'll start screaming at Steve Kerr over something. There was a video going around that he was drawing up a play in the huddle or something like that. I don't know the context of it, so I don't think there's anything to read into it. But, if they were losing, for sure something like that would probably be blowing up on social media right now.
Yeah, I'm really kind of curious where this goes. The idea of injecting Jimmy Butler into the Steph spacing, Jimmy, who is already good at getting into the cracks of the defense, and now you have a defense that is stretched out so far because they have to worry about Steph everywhere he is on the court. If they had one more shooter, I would say, I'd be really, really nervous about what they're capable of.
Yeah.
But Pods has taken a real step back this year.
Yeah.
Kuminga was the name I was thinking of earlier. We haven't seen him, I don't believe, come back quite yet. So, I think he's on the mend. He should be coming back relatively soon if he isn't playing tonight. But I'm really kind of curious, where they go and what this looks like. And you're right. Jimmy Butler does eventually kind of wear out his welcome. And eventually it does kind of, Jimmy Butler, if he was a meal, it would be sushi, right? Because it's really, really fresh, right? Right when you get it. But if you wait, 15 minutes, that meal is not anywhere near as good as it was back when it first was put on the table.
Yeah, good analogy. Yeah, you wouldn't. You don't sushi is not like pizza. You can eat it the next day. It's you got to eat it that night. Oh, that's it.
Yeah, and we'll see how well this ages this time.
Yeah.
The other story here that we got to get to, and I know I mentioned Joel Embiid here. I should have probably also added to it the unfortunate situation that's playing out in San Antonio, where Victor Wembanyama is out for the season, and then shortly thereafter we got report also from Shams that Greg Popovich is unlikely to return this season. I went down and covered a Lakers game when they played the Spurs about a month or so back, maybe a month and some change, and there were some of those whispers around that facility there, it was a stroke. And I think everybody has been very protective of this information. They are going to give Pop every chance that they can for him to end his career kind of more on his terms rather than have that, because he just signed an extension heading into the season, to have that final chapter kind of robbed by way of this stroke is would be a real bummer there. But so I don't really have much of a take outside of I really hope Wemby gets better soon. He has that blood clot situation that isn't as serious as Chris Bosh's, but it's still a blood clot, so they're going to be very careful with that.
Yeah. And
then you have the situation here with Pop. Just kind of my heart goes out to that organization and all those fans, to be riding as high as you were probably coming into the season, and then to trade for De'Aaron Fox and think holy crap, we're really making strides, and then to kind of have that all break the way that it has over the last week or so is a real bummer.
Yeah, definitely the Wembanyama, because it came out of nowhere really, and the big thing with him is can his body hold up? So far it had been one of these ones that whenever it comes to a blood clot and things like that, I'm I just never know quite how what the potential is here. Yeah, because you hear horror stories about it, but by the sounds of it, they detected it early, and we'll treat it for the rest of this season. So that's great news. And of course, with Popovich, obviously, you just hope that he also can recover his health, and whether he coaches again or not, who knows? We'll probably find out, sometime in the off season. But if he has coached the last game, I mean, he's just been an incredible coach, great man, not afraid to speak his mind on issues outside of basketball as well, which I respect. And he's been an entertaining coach. I always enjoy his press conferences. I've been belittled by him a couple of times for asking what I thought were, I always tried to ask great questions. I always try to ask thoughtful ones. And sometimes I think they were, and I just think he was like, nah, not today. But we'll see. I mean, obviously, yeah, he's older now. He's well into his 70s, and his health is the biggest priority. So hopefully he can at least get on top of that.
The other player that I mentioned there, Joel Embiid, apparently he and the Sixers are going to be, kind of talking to as many specialists as they can to get a grasp on what has happened to his knee this season. And if I remember correctly, and I did some quick Googling before the show, Embiid had that surgery that Brandon Roy had, that where I believe he tore his, was it his meniscus?
That's what Roy had, yeah, and they removed it.
Right. So essentially, there are two paths to rehabbing and recovering from that injury. One is where you repair it and you rehab it, and it takes a lot longer. But the recovery is a lot more stable than the path that we saw Brandon Roy take, where he removed the meniscus and was able to return to the basketball court really, really quickly, but then was never really the same player. And his career was really kind of cut short by it seems that decision. And when I remember when the report dropped that Joel Embiid was going to be heading down that path too, I was just kind of blown away, because it's one thing for Brandon Roy, who was like a 6'4" shooting guard, who obviously had some bounce to his game and was a shifty player and all of that stuff. Joel Embiid is 7'3". He's a gigantic human being. To me, yes, it would take longer to get him back out onto the court or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's like, I would much rather take my time with getting him back out onto the court than remove his meniscus entirely, destabilize, it appears, that knee in the process. And it just doesn't appear like he has ever been at any point going into the season or now. Like, he looked badly in the Olympics.
Yeah.
He didn't look good there. And then he has never looked very good in the minutes that he's actually been able to get on the court so far this season. I'm really concerned for how this is gonna play out here for Joel Embiid.
Yeah, I think the injuries that he had at the start of his career, where he missed the first 2 full seasons and then played 31 games in his third season. He looked great when he was out there, but he was, a bit younger. Now he's got another 10 years on his body. As you get older, it just gets a lot harder, to move that weight around. And he's such a big dude. That's where I think, from what I'm sort of reading and gauging from people who cover the Sixers, is I think a part of it is just the effort required by him to sort of, get in there and rehab and work on it, because it just becomes harder as you get older, or for all of us, you carry a little bit more weight, and it's harder to shake it as well. And when you've had so many injuries and so many surgeries, you just wonder mentally sort of what toll that takes on you as well, where you're continually rehabbing and continually trying to be like, right, you've got to drop weight, you've got to trim down, you've got to do these warm-up exercises and cool-down exercises as well. So, you're continually on this sort of treadmill of just, body maintenance and maintaining a certain level of weight and, and maintenance, that I think that just that must weigh on you as well. So that's the thing. And the Sixers this season's just been a disaster from day one. Yeah. The quicker they sort of get to the off season and start figuring out what they're going to do. Paul George clearly hasn't hasn't worked out there. They were trying to trade him apparently at the deadline.
Yep.
Maxey, he's great. He's the future of this team. But really, the Sixers, I don't even think they can make the play-in anymore, and I don't think they really want to. I think for draft, for their draft pick, I think they need to miss completely. I'd have to double check that, but it's just been
miss and fall way down. Basically, because I think it's a top 7 protected pick.
It's something like that. So they almost need to pull the plug now and just say, right, let's just tank so we keep our pick at least and get something out of this season, because it's been a disastrous season for a team that going into, you would think that they've got eyes on absolutely no worse than the conference finals, and instead they're probably not even going to make the play-in.
Well, that's the tough thing here too with Embiid, is that they have actually been like, I know people are like, oh, here goes the Sixers, trust the process, all this stuff. They've actually been worse with him on the court this season. And this idea that like they are talking to these specialists for the sake of being able to shut him down for the season and protect their pick, I actually think sitting him this year makes them a better team in some ways. He's been that bad this year, and we'll see what happens there. But to the point I made earlier about the Eastern Conference, the Sixers, I think at one point had lost like 8 out of 10, and I think the Bulls had lost like 8 out of 10 or something like that. Your former colleague, Trey Kirby, tweeted out like the stat.
Yeah.
And it was something along the lines of the Chicago Bulls have lost like 8 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 and have lost, they have only lost ground to the tune of like 1 game to the team that was like, to the 76ers. And it's just like, it's such an abomination of a conference there that like, I don't know if the Sixers can play bad enough to be as bad as like the Charlotte Hornets or the teams that they like the San Antonio Spurs are probably going to really struggle, and the Portland Trailblazers played well for a little bit, but they're going to fall back to earth. Utah is going to start getting on their tanking stuff too. So I don't know to what extent so long as Tyrese Maxey is playing, to what extent the Sixers can actually tank. He's just too good. He's better than any of the players that any of these teams have that are that low in the conference and in the standings. And we'll kind of see how it plays out.
As it stands right now, if I've got it correct, they've got the 6th worst record in the league. So if that is a top 7 protected, they will keep their pick. The Nets, of course, won in Philly last night, which was good for Philadelphia. So they're kind of going to be battling against the Nets. And it's right, it's the Bulls. The Bulls, 13 games below 500 are in the play-in right now.
Yeah, they have like the 6th worst record in the league, and they have home court advantage in the first round of the Eastern Conference playoffs. But I you made the point, and you kind of alluded to it there, like the toll that constantly rehabbing has on Embiid. And I know that he is a kind of a sensitive guy, and he's a very introspective guy, and he has been kind of the butt of a lot of jokes that I also have made. I find him kind of awful to watch because of all the flopping and stuff like that. But also, like, I really do hope that Joel Embiid, the person, is getting support through all of this, because it has to be maddening to not be able to get out there and play. And just, I remember when like it, age kind of hit me, and I was not able to do a lot of the things that I felt like I was able to do like a week ago. On a basketball court or just moving, and for Embiid to have reached the pinnacle that he had as an MVP of the NBA, to have it all robbed from him as quickly as it has this year. I do really hope we see him on a court and healthy and all of that, but I think maybe even more importantly, I hope that he's getting the help to kind of help him through all of these this last year or so.
Well, and that I remember that with Derrick Rose as well. He said, once he bounced around or started, he went from the Bulls to the Knicks, and then he went to the Cavs, I think, because they thought he was going to sort of be there for LeBron. And I remember at one point they said, he's contemplating retirement because he's just so sick and tired of continually rehabbing coming back from injuries and having to sort of continually work on it. So that's the emotional and mental side of an injury that you don't really hear too much about. If you hear a guy's got an injury, it's like, well, rehab it. It's like, yeah, but again, if you're rehabbing and you're continually just sort of doing treatment and things like that, it's got to be tough. It's got to wear on you, especially again when you're a father and you're like, I want to play with my kids. I want to do more than just this. So that's what I think he's facing. But again, I think when you go back to when he first started having chronic knee problems, and then when he started playing, it was like, well, he looks great, but he's just a big body dude, and that's what he can't really. He's not like a Chris Bosh who was always a little bit more wiry of a guy, and Bede's natural body makeup, he's just a heavier dude.
Yeah. All right. The final thing that we got to get to here before we send you guys out into the rest of your weekend is Thursday's destination, which is now I'm not originally from LA. I'm from Orange County, but Los Angeles, California.
Yeah.
A place that I have near and dear to the heart. What should we be looking forward to on Thursday?
Well, so yeah, I was in San Francisco for the All-Star weekend, and I thought, well, while I'm in California, I've been trying to get out to Los Angeles and find a reason and an excuse to go out there. I thought I may as well just go and spend at least one day there. So I caught an early flight, connected with one of my friends who's a big Lakers fan. He knows you too, Jobber. He's been a Lakers Lounge listener for a long time. Great guy. Came out with his wife, Ginger, and their daughter, Jamison. And he chauffeured me around. We went to Venice Beach. And then from Venice Beach, we went down to Angels Gate. And, it's not that far apart in terms of actual miles, but because of Los Angeles traffic, it's like we had to leave Venice Beach at about 3:30 to get to Angels Gate for like 5 o'clock because I wanted to get the sunset there. So we did. But, there's a big part of me, I always wanted to live in Los Angeles, especially because I grew up with the Lakers and the Showtime Lakers. And I'm like the palm trees, the beautiful weather, so many movies, it's one of the most, glorious destinations in the world. But then just in someone else's car in traffic, I'm like, oh, I don't know how I would, I'm not sure. Not sure how I feel about it now. And just I know as well, California is very expensive. There's high taxes and, buying a house. Like he was showing me some houses and I said, interesting. How much would this be? We were sort of near the Venice Beach area, but not like right on the beach. And he goes, these ones aren't too bad. Probably only about 2 million. And I'm like, that looks like a 2-bedroom shack that was built in 1938. But
that's a new one.
Yeah. But no, Venice Beach, man. Yeah, I in hindsight, I'm like, you know what? I probably should have just stayed the day. Played all night because there would have been games going on. But I'm a family man. Had to get back to the family, the wife and the boys. But the idea of Los Angeles and California is still something that resonates with me. It's just the practicality of living there is not as appealing as it once was.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear more about it. It's going to be a good fun talk there. And like I said, didn't grow up in LA specifically, grew up in Orange County, but made a ton of treks up to LA and throughout LA. And one of my favorite places in the world, if you kind of know how to get around and when to get around and what to try to do and stuff. But I can't wait to hear about your experiences there, and we'll be able to talk about that more on Friday when we get together here for the kind of more global look at basketball. And there's a ton also to talk about. We didn't get in this show to talk about Lonnie Walker getting back to the NBA.
Yeah.
There's a lot there's a lot of meat left on the bone here as we prep for Friday's show later this week. So until then, and until the next time you guys hear from us, please hit that subscribe button. Please hit that like button. Tell your friends about the show. If you guys are listening to it via podcast, hit that subscribe button there as well, and 5-star reviews there on iTunes as well. That stuff helps the show. And until Friday, I'm Anthony Irwin. That's Lee Ellis. This has been Basketball Passport. Have a good one, everybody.